Let me tell you something most people never accept. Success is a lonely journey, not because you are better than others, but because growth requires distance. There will be moments when no one understands your vision. No applause, no encouragement, no one cheering from the sidelines. And that's not a sign you're wrong. That's a sign you're early. You see, the crowd gathers at the finish line, not at the starting line. If you are not willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. Doing it alone doesn't mean you're abandoned. It means you're becoming disciplined. It means you're learning to rely on principles instead of opinions. Most people quit because they need approval, but progress does not ask for permission. There will be mornings when no message comes, evenings when no one checks in, days when the silence feels heavy. That's when character is built. Because the person who can work alone can work anywhere. This is not about isolation. It's about independence, independent thinking, independent discipline, independent standards. If you can stand alone with your commitment, you can stand strong. When success arrives, so don't wait for agreement. Don't wait for support. Don't wait for company. Do the work, even if you must do it alone. Because the path to greatness is not crowded. And that's exactly why it works. Let's begin. Success has a quiet beginning. It doesn't arrive with applause. It doesn't come with company. Most people imagine success as something celebrated. But before it is celebrated, it is endured. The early days are lonely. Not because something is wrong, but because something is changing. When you decide to grow, you step out of the familiar. And familiarity is where most people stay. Growth creates distance, different habits, different priorities, different standards. And when your standards rise, your circle often shrinks. This is not rejection. It is separation by intention. If you want to do better, you have to become better. Becoming better requires solitude, not isolation from people, but independence from approval. Most people need agreement before they move. But success moves first and explains later. When you begin waking earlier, working longer, thinking deeper, people notice, not always with support, sometimes with silence, sometimes with doubt, sometimes with subtle resistance, not because they dislike you, but because your discipline disturbs their comfort. Loneliness is the cost of clarity, clarity about what matters. When you know your direction, you stop wandering. And wanderers travel in groups. Focused people often walk alone. The path is lonely because few are willing to walk it. It demands patience. It demands repetition. It demands sacrifice without immediate reward. Most people want results without the season of solitude, but solitude is the classroom. This is where discipline is learned. No one watching, no one cheering, no one reminding you, just you and your commitment. This is where self-respect is built, because every day you show up alone, you prove something to yourself. You prove you can be trusted, and self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Loneliness also removes distraction. When you walk alone, there is less noise, less opinion, less comparison, less pressure to perform, just progress. You start listening inward to your goals, your standards, your values. Most people never hear themselves think. They are too surrounded to be centered. Success requires thinking, and thinking requires space. The path is lonely because it demands responsibility. You can't blame anyone when you walk alone. No group to hide in, no crowd to follow. Every decision points back to you. That level of ownership makes many uncomfortable, so they avoid the path altogether. But those who stay, they grow strong. They grow clear. They grow steady. Loneliness teaches patience because progress is slow when it's real. And in that slowness, you either quit or you mature. Success doesn't reward speed. It rewards consistency. And consistency is easier when you stop needing company. Here's the truth. The loneliness won't last forever, but the strength you build there will. One day, others will join you, not because you invited them, but because they see where you are going. And when that happens, you will be grateful for the days you learned to walk alone. Because the person who can stand alone can stand anywhere. That is why the path to success is often lonely, not to weaken you, but to prepare you. There is a moment in every life when you realize something important. No one is coming. No one is going to rescue you. No one is going to push you every day. No one is going to care as much as you must. And this realization is not discouraging. It is empowering, because the moment you accept that you must do it alone, you reclaim your power. Most people wait. They wait for motivation. They wait for permission. They wait for someone to walk beside them. But success does not respond to waiting. It responds to action. And action begins alone. The phrase, do it alone, does not mean rejecting people. It means refusing to depend on them. It means building a life that does not collapse. When support disappears, self-reliance is strength. You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. When you do it alone, you stop negotiating with excuses. There is no one to blame, no one to lean on, no one to distract you from the truth. Only results. Working alone sharpens discipline. You show up because you said you would, not because someone is watching, not because someone is expecting, but because your word matters to you. That is character. And character outlasts motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is personal. Doing it alone trains you to act regardless of mood. Some days you feel strong. Some days you feel tired. Some days you feel uncertain. You act anyway. That consistency compounds. Small actions done daily without applause. That is how confidence is built. Not through talk, through proof. When you do it alone, you hear your inner voice clearly, not the noise of opinions, not the weight of comparison, not the pressure to explain, just direction. Most people never develop direction because they are constantly influenced. They borrow dreams. They chase trends. They follow crowds. But a borrowed dream has no endurance. It fades when things get difficult. A self-chosen path keeps pulling you forward. Doing it alone teaches patience because progress is slower. When it is real, there are no shortcuts. When no one is carrying you, every step must be earned, and earned progress lasts. You begin to respect the process. You stop rushing outcomes. You understand that growth is invisible before it is obvious. This is the power of solitude, not loneliness. Solitude. Solitude builds clarity. Clarity builds confidence. Confidence builds momentum. When you rely on yourself, your standards rise. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, what does this require? That question changes everything. Because success is not about approval. It is about alignment. Alignment between your actions and your intentions. Doing it alone forces honesty. You cannot pretend. You either work or you don't. You either grow or you stagnate. There is no audience to impress, only progress to measure. And slowly, something powerful happens. You become dependable to yourself. That is rare. Most people break promises to themselves every day. They delay. They excuse. They justify. But when you do it alone, you keep your word. And self-trust grows. With self-trust comes courage. You attempt harder things. You take bigger responsibility. You stop waiting for perfect conditions because you've learned something vital. You don't need ideal circumstances. You need commitment Doing it alone also prepares you for leadership, because leaders cannot depend on constant encouragement. They must act when others hesitate. They must decide when others doubt. They must move before consensus appears. And that strength is developed in private, long before it is seen in public. Here is the truth. Doing it alone is temporary. Becoming strong is permanent. One day your discipline will attract support. Your results will invite respect. Your consistency will create opportunity. But by then, you will no longer need it, because you learned how to move forward without permission. That is real freedom. That is real power. Not the power of position, the power of self-mastery. And self-mastery begins the moment you decide, I will do it alone until it is done. Standing alone is uncomfortable. It tests you. It strips away reassurance. It removes approval. It forces you to face yourself. Most people avoid this stage. They stay where it is crowded. They stay where it is familiar. They stay where expectations are shared. But growth does not happen in crowds. It happens in quiet decisions, made when no one is watching. Standing alone today is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of preparation, because strength is not built when life is easy. Strength is built when you keep moving without guarantees. Today, you may feel unseen. You may feel misunderstood. You may feel ahead of your time or behind everyone else. None of that matters. What matters is this. Are you becoming stronger? When you stand alone, you learn endurance. You learn how to stay committed. When enthusiasm fades, you learn how to continue. When progress feels slow. This is where most people quit. Not because they are incapable, but because they are impatient. They want results without resistance. They want confidence without discomfort. They want strength without solitude. But tomorrow's strength is built in today's silence. Standing alone sharpens focus. There is no noise to follow, no opinions to adjust for, no validation to chase, just clarity. And clarity simplifies life. You stop trying to do everything. You stop trying to please everyone. You focus on what matters. Your habits, your standards, your direction. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Discipline grows faster when you stand alone, because no one reminds you. You remind yourself. No one pushes you. You push yourself. That internal pressure is what separates those who last from those who disappear. Standing alone also reveals truth. You discover what you really want, not what sounds impressive, not what earns approval, not what fits expectations, but what calls you forward. This truth is often uncomfortable. It may require sacrifice. It may require patience. It may require saying no to things that feel good now, to build something meaningful later. That is maturity. That is wisdom. Standing alone today means resisting shortcuts. Shortcuts promise speed, but steal strength. They offer comfort at the cost of character. But you are not building for today. You are building for tomorrow. For the pressure you haven't faced yet. For the responsibility you haven't earned yet. For the opportunities that demand readiness. Tomorrow does not reward intention. It rewards preparation. And preparation happens in isolation. Standing alone builds emotional control. You learn how to manage doubt without outsourcing confidence. You learn how to handle fear without needing reassurance. You learn how to calm your mind when there is no one to encourage you. This is not coldness. This is stability, because unstable people cannot carry long-term success. Standing alone today creates inner structure. You become less reactive, less distracted, less dependent on circumstances. You respond instead of reacting. You choose instead of drifting. That is strength. And strength compounds. One disciplined day leads to another. One focused decision creates momentum. One quiet victory builds belief. Slowly, you change. Not overnight, but permanently. And then something interesting happens. People begin to notice. Not your words, not your intentions, your presence, your calm, your consistency, your certainty. You no longer chase attention. Attention follows growth. Standing alone today means standing prepared tomorrow, prepared for pressure, prepared for responsibility, prepared for leadership, because leadership is not learned in moments of praise. It is learned when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is encouraging, just you and the standard you refuse to lower. Tomorrow, the results will speak. They will explain what you never announced. They will justify the solitude. They will reward the patience. And when you no longer stand alone, you will not forget this season, because this season built you. Standing alone today was never about isolation. It was about foundation, and a strong tomorrow always stands on a quiet today. Leadership is not a title. It is not a position. It is not permission. Leadership begins the moment you stop waiting to be told what to do with your life. Most people are not lacking talent. They are lacking direction. They wait for motivation. They wait for clarity. They wait for someone to believe in them first. But leadership does not arrive from the outside. It is built from the inside. Becoming your own leader means taking full responsibility for how you think, how you act, and how you respond. No excuses, no blame, just ownership. Ownership is uncomfortable because once you lead yourself, you can no longer hide. You cannot blame circumstances. You cannot point to the past. You cannot wait for better timing. You decide every day. Self-leadership starts with standards. What will you accept? What will you tolerate? What will you no longer allow? Most lives drift because standards are low. People don't fail from lack of ability. They fail from lack of discipline. And discipline is self-leadership in action. We must all suffer from one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. When you become your own leader, you choose discipline early to avoid regret later. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop asking, do I feel like it? You start asking, is this who I want to become? Leadership is a daily conversation with yourself. And the tone of that conversation shapes your future. Self-leadership also means leading your emotions. Feelings are powerful, but they are not reliable leaders. If you follow feelings, you will quit early. If you follow principles, you will last longer than motivation. Becoming your own leader means acting when enthusiasm is gone. It means working when progress is slow. It means staying committed when results are invisible. That is leadership. Not dramatic, not loud, consistent. Self-leadership requires structure. Leaders design their days. They don't wake up hoping for productivity. They create routines. They protect priorities. They manage time intentionally. You either run your day or your day runs you. There is no middle ground. Leading yourself also means making difficult decisions early. Decisions that feel lonely. Decisions that feel inconvenient. Saying no to distractions. Saying yes to growth. Saying no to comfort. Saying yes to long-term vision. Most people delay hard decisions until life forces them. Leaders decide early, so life doesn't decide for them. Becoming your own leader also means self-correction. Leaders review. They ask, What worked? What didn't? What needs to change? They adjust without ego. They don't defend bad habits. They don't justify poor choices. They improve. Quietly, relentlessly. Leadership is not perfection. It is progress. Guided by awareness. There will be days you fail yourself. That does not disqualify you. What matters is how quickly you recover. Do you quit or do you recommit? Self-leadership is the ability to forgive yourself without excusing yourself. That balance is rare and powerful. When you become your own leader, confidence grows. Not because everything is easy, but because you trust yourself. You know that no matter what happens, you will respond with discipline. You will adapt. You will learn. You will continue. That trust is priceless because life will test you. Plans will change. People will leave. Circumstances will shift. If you cannot lead yourself, those moments will break you. But if you can, they will refine you. Self-leadership also prepares you to lead others because people don't follow words. They follow example. They follow consistency. They follow calm strength. You cannot lead others well if you cannot lead yourself. Leadership is not about control. It is about direction. And when you lead yourself, your life gains direction. Purpose replaces confusion. Action replaces hesitation. Discipline replaces chaos. Slowly, your life becomes aligned, and alignment creates momentum. Becoming your own leader is the turning point. It is where effort becomes effective. It is where discipline becomes identity. You stop trying to change your life. You start becoming the person who naturally lives differently. That is leadership. Not someday. Not when conditions improve. Now, every decision, every habit, every response, because the strongest leader you will ever follow must be you. There will be a season when no one claps, no encouragement, no recognition, no visible reward. This is not punishment. This is preparation. Winning alone is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is often proof that you are doing something rare. Most people quit here, not because the work is impossible, but because the silence is uncomfortable. They confuse loneliness with failure. But winning has always required a private season, a season where belief must be stronger than feedback, a season where discipline replaces applause. When you win alone, you are building internal strength, strength that does not depend on praise, strength that does not collapse when attention disappears. This is where character is forged, because when no one is watching, you discover who you truly are. You discover whether your commitment was real or just emotional. It is easy to stay disciplined when people are cheering. It is difficult to stay disciplined when no one even notices. That difficulty is the test. Winning alone also teaches patience. Results do not arrive on demand. Progress is often invisible at first. Days pass. Weeks pass. Sometimes months. Nothing seems to change. But beneath the surface, everything is changing. Skills are sharpening. Confidence is growing. Standards are rising. You may feel unseen, but you are being built. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And becoming always happens before recognition. Winning alone requires trust. Trust in your plan. Trust in your habits. Trust in your future self. You must believe that the effort you invest today will eventually show up tomorrow, even if tomorrow feels far away. This kind of trust cannot be borrowed. It must be earned through consistency. Every day you show up without applause, you strengthen that trust. And slowly, self-respect replaces self-doubt. You no longer need external validation. because you know what you're doing when no one is looking. Winning alone also teaches humility. It removes ego. There is no audience to impress, no image to protect, just the work. And the work tells the truth. You either did it or you didn't. This honesty is a gift because it forces growth. It forces you to improve quietly instead of perform loudly. Many people want recognition before results. Leaders earn results first. Recognition comes later, sometimes much later. But when it comes, it lasts longer. When you win alone, you also learn independence. You stop relying on motivation. You stop waiting for permission. You move because it is time to move. Not because it feels good. Not because it's popular. Because it's necessary. And necessity creates momentum. Eventually, something shifts. Small wins appear. Progress becomes measurable. Others begin to notice. They ask questions. They say, "When did this happen?" They didn't see the quiet mornings. They didn't see the lonely nights. They didn't see the discipline without applause. They only see the outcome. And that is how it works. You don't announce growth. You reveal it. Winning alone does not mean you will always be alone. It means you are willing to go first, to build without witnesses, to carry belief until others can see what you see. And one day, you won't be alone anymore. Not because you asked for support, but because your results invited it. By then, you won't need approval. You'll appreciate partnership. That is the difference. Winning alone builds strength. Winning together multiplies it. But together only works after alone has been mastered. So if today feels quiet, stay steady. If no one understands yet, stay disciplined. If progress feels slow, stay patient. You are not behind. You are in training. And when the time comes for the world to notice, you'll be ready. Because you didn't wait to win. You started winning when no one was watching. Let me leave you with this thought. Success does not arrive with noise. It arrives with preparation. Long before the world sees the results, someone was waking up early. Someone was staying disciplined. Someone was choosing growth over comfort. Often, that someone was alone. And that's okay. Because loneliness, when used wisely, is not weakness. It is training. Every hour you invest in yourself, when no one is watching, is shaping the future you will eventually live. You don't need permission to become better. You don't need applause to stay disciplined. You don't need company to move forward. All you need is a decision to keep going, even when the path feels quiet, especially when it feels quiet. Because those who learn to stand alone learn how to stand strong. And those who stand strong eventually attract everything they once had to pursue alone. So walk your path, do your work, build your life. One day, others will walk with you. But today, it's enough to keep moving, alone, quietly, with purpose,